Hello. What I want to tell you about today is that the story of human conflict that we have been taught to focus on and that exists in this world is inaccurate. Here's what I mean. What we're taught is that there's a conflict between rich and poor. What's drilled into us for our whole lives is that if you're poor, then your highest aspiration to work up, to be rich, or at least middle class. And if you do that, that's considered success, and then it's all flowers and butterflies from there, and everything is all good. But the reality is that most of the rich and most of the poor are roughly in the same boat. Because the problem is that, the way I see it, much of the economy is locked. What I mean by that is that most of the money that flows in this world, it flows to and from things that really should not exist in the first place. And I could try to be very moderate and please everyone and stay center of the road, but I'm just going to be brutal. At least for me, which is not really that aggressive, but I'll do my best. So, anyway, what I was saying is that basically the way most people profit is by participating in the production and distribution of goods that ultimately keep humanity dumbed down and degraded. And it creates this vicious positive feedback loop whereby the more those things get sold, the more we feel we need those things, and then we keep buying them, and the money keeps going in the circle of buying and selling. And as we become more dumbed down, the economy gets more locked into these things. And then the things that really would enhance our lives and would keep us from needing this bad stuff in the first place, there's less money flowing there. And when there's less money flowing in the things that are truly valuable and wholesome, then it becomes that much harder to make money with integrity. So what I'm saying is that there isn't really a conflict between rich and poor, because if you're poor, then you're just poor. And if you're rich, then, or if you're middle class at least, odds are the way you make your money is out of integrity. And of course, you're probably also feeding on people's relative scarcity to an extent, because part of the way people stay poor is by staying dumbed down. But of course, dumbing down is a part of the false narrative, because we're taught that if you become educated, then you won't be dumbed down anymore. But the reality is that if you either get public education or you do poorly in school, you'll probably, most likely, based on the way most people are, you will be dumbed down either way. It's just a matter of what your dumbing down looks like. On the one hand, we have the snobby dumbed down person who thinks they're smart, but they're really not. And then on the other hand, there's just the people who can't read or anything. And those are the people who are obviously, I don't want to say oppressed, but let's just go with that word. Oppressed. And so, where I think a lot of people I've known in my life, I live in a fairly affluent town, and this is the same place where I went to high school. And our high school is supposedly one of the top ranked in the nation. I don't know if it is anymore, but it was when I went to school. I'm gonna stop. Alright, I had to move. I don't know how good the shot is, but I'm just gonna keep going. Anyway, so what I was saying is that I went to a fairly affluent high school, and what I basically have concluded is that a lot of the people who come out of that system are fake smart. So this means that, everyone says they're smart, they have good grades, They go on to get fairly good jobs, like being teachers and nurses, and a lot go into some form of business management, others go into technology. But of course, what really ends up happening to them is they just get stuck in those locked parts of the economy where, yeah, they do make money, but they're just feeding into the perpetuation of a system which is not in our best interest. So I call them fake smart because they get to the top of the system, but the reality is that the people who are a step down, who are one step down from the true top, are the people who are the most oppressed. And that's why Roseanne says things like, the most scared people are the people in Hollywood. Because people like Beyonce and Lady Gaga and Jay-Z and Kanye West, they're one step down from the top. They have controllers who have brainwashed them and who make them do things that in good conscience they would rather not do. Lady Gaga has talked about this, and of course her real name is Stephanie Joanne Germanotta, so I'm just going to refer to her as Stephanie out of respect, because Lady Gaga is sort of an alter ego for her that she has been given as also her stage name. But you know, living under that persona is really torture. And if you watch certain interviews of her and you listen to things she has said, you could tell that she's a very tortured human being. But you know, the public has this perception that she's at the top and she has all this money and she must have gotten there through her talent, and she does have a good voice. But you know, the reality is that people like that overall have it just as bad as some of the poorest people. It's like, yeah, she gets to eat and she has all this money, but she refuses to sleep alone at night because she's so scared. And it's like, what kind of life is that? She talks about having nightmares about demons attacking her, and you know, she's had interviews where she's candid, and then other interviews where obviously something is very wrong, and she just makes it clear overall that something very horrible is going on, and she's not really the one at the top. She has controllers, and in a way she is oppressed as well. And I know it's easy to say that she chose that life, but you know, she got into it very young, as many singers and actors do, especially child actors. And once you get into that, it's very hard to leave. Especially if, well, you know, I don't know everything that goes on behind the scenes. She probably would get some kind of threats if she tried to leave, and especially if she tried to expose outright what's actually happening. So that's what I'm saying, is the people who are one step below the top are actually the most oppressed and the most afraid. And I'm not criticizing my peers, the people who I've known my whole life. I'm just saying that they don't really, it looks like they know a lot, but they don't realize that there's this circle outside of what they think they know. And that's where the real truth is. That's where the real system is. So it's like they've mastered the inside of the system, but they're not the masters of the system. The masters of the system sit just outside it, and then those are the people who are truly at the top. So, you know, people regard it as ambitious to become like a school teacher or a nurse. People told me multiple times, like, oh yeah, nursing, you make such good money, why don't you do it? Like, it's impossible to not get a job. And then my view is, why would I want to be a nurse when I can work on creating a world where very few nurses are necessary at all. I would rather actually work on improving people's health rather than just tending to people who are victims of lies and a broken system. So that's one of the messages I want to send here, is forget about mastering the inside of the system. Instead, work with integrity and focus on fixing the system or going outside it, and just whatever way you go, just work on actually improving life rather than just perpetuating the way things are now. And like I said, most money-making pursuits are locked in that undesirable part of the economy where, you know, most money is made from basically breaking people down, whether that's through physical means like drugs and junk food, or it's by fixing and maintaining people who are broken from those things. So most money-making pursuits are just based on breaking people or barely maintaining people who have been broken. So it's very messed up. But so like I said, most people get locked into that, but not everybody does. There are people who do make money with integrity, and they've gone beyond that locked economy. It's not the majority of people, but there are people who have done it, and that is what I aspire to. And I believe that I could do it, but I'm not going to get too much into that right now. One example of a person who I think did manage to go beyond that is our president, Donald Trump. I mean, you know, Trump hasn't worked on, like, improving people's health, for example, but based on what I've read about him and what he has written himself in his books, his career was centered around real estate development. And while that's not an obviously world-changing thing, let's say, as far as I can tell, Donald Trump still had a career with integrity, because, you know, he didn't have a boss above him, so he was in charge of himself and then of the people who worked for him. And, you know, I don't know all the details of his career, so I don't know if there were ever times where maybe he kind of screwed people over financially when he was making deals. I don't know, but overall, you know, what I'm trying to say is that Trump worked on his own terms, and he did what he really wanted to do. And not only that, but he did an excellent job of it, because he just had very high standards when it came to real estate development, and he met those standards. And his buildings still stand today, and they do well, and it looks to me like things turned out the way he wanted them to. And, you know, at the same time, real estate, what he has done with his career, I don't see how it has harmed the world in any way. You know, it's not like selling cigarettes and junk food to people. It's not like having a casino and making money off of gambling. Although he does have one casino, so I kind of just shot myself in the foot there. But on the whole, I would say that Trump's career has been a net positive for the world. And I'm not talking at all about his presidency. I'm just talking about his real estate career. I would say overall that has been a net positive. And if the work you do creates a net positive for the world, then that is, in effect, working with integrity. And obviously, integrity in the end is up to you, because integrity is about being true to yourself. So while I can't tell you what integrity means for you, I think we can generally agree that if your actions have a net drain on the world and you make things worse, then you're out of integrity. Because I don't see how you could live with yourself in good conscience if you're making the world a worse place. Now, part of the problem, again, going back to how the economy is locked and all these negative things, is that we're given this idea that, if people are buying, then you're providing value to them. So it's like, oh, well, if people are going to buy that stuff anyway, what's the problem with producing it and distributing it to them? And it's like, well, selling people cigarettes doesn't change the fact that it's going to kill them, slowly but surely. So, I'm really just reiterating what I've said already, but again, we just don't have high enough standards for what truly is useful and good and world-changing. People are content to just make money and if it looks like it's good enough for the world, then that's good enough. But you have to question beyond the normal paradigm. You have to say, yeah, I'm making this technology, I'm helping to build this, and it seems really cool, but is this actually helping the world? What agenda is behind this technology? Because most technologies have been built with some kind of agenda, and usually it's not very good. But that doesn't mean that technology can't still be used for good in some way. You have to consciously think through all the implications of your career. It's like, you have to ask yourself, is this something I really want to bring into the world? Is this going to hurt people more than it helps them? Am I just maintaining a system that is fundamentally broken and that works against us? You have to ask yourself these things. And it is hard, because when you ask yourself these questions and you answer honestly and you hold yourself to what your conscience tells you is right and wrong, a lot of career paths are going to become unfit for you. There are a lot of things you won't allow yourself to do. Not knowing the way that the world really works and what the effects of those careers really have. So, in a way, it does seem like it lowers your prospects, but it's actually good because it narrows down the options, and it gets you closer to what is that one true path for you anyway. So, that's another part of the lie, is that we're always told to keep our options open, and you don't have to know what you want to do with your life yet, you're only 18, and then they keep telling you that when you're 20, because I would know, and then they'll probably keep telling you when you're 25. I've heard 25-year-olds say that themselves, that they still don't want to know what they want to do, and I'm like, God, you're 25? And you're just like working in a game store, and you don't know what you're going to do? Like, what happened? Where have you been for like the last 7 years since you've been out of high school? What's going on? So that's the thing. They don't want us to be vigilant. They don't want us to be self-determined. They say keep your options open and just float around aimlessly. Just pick up whatever you can, whatever comes your way. And it's like, no, don't do that. Do not be opportunistic. Because if you're opportunistic, what happens is you set yourself up with this very needy and greedy state of being. And when that happens, you become drawn to things that are a match for that greedy, needy state of being. So when you're opportunistic, the opportunities that come to you will be inevitably suboptimal. The draw of those opportunities will probably be financially based. But if you actually take the time to ethically question yourself and ask what the real effects of that path would be on the world, you wouldn't let yourself do it. And so the reason I say don't be opportunistic is that when you're opportunistic, most of the opportunities that come to you are not real opportunities at all. If anything, they're just opportunities to keep you in that locked part of the economy and to just basically make you a financial slave, like most people are. So, reject opportunism and don't keep your options open. Know what you want and be vigilant about getting it. And on that note, likewise, I'll encourage you not to work within the system. Don't become a fake smart person. Work on actually changing the system. Go outside of that system and then work on it from there, from that elevated place of being above it. Because, you know, if you become a nurse and you try to improve healthcare from that place of being inside the system, I would say that your chances are not as good as if you go outside the system. Because the reason I say that is if you try to do both, you know, the work you do will be at odds with the message you want to send. And I just don't see how you could perpetuate the current system and then try to reform it at the same time. You're just working against yourself. It's like schizophrenia. You know, it's like if a teacher tries to reform the education system, they're probably just going to lose their job. So, you know, you just have to cut off those shackles and just go straight for it. Don't chain yourself to some freaking job that is out of integrity. Just go straight for the thing that you're actually trying to do. And as I've implied, that basically entails that you have to go outside of the main system to some extent. And so if you do want to be a teacher, you do want to work on education reform, you can't just go to college, get your bachelor's degree in teaching, and then go find a job at a public school. That's not, because if you do that, you're just perpetuating things. Instead, you have to maybe make online courses or expose how corrupted the school system is. You have to go beyond the normal way of doing things if you want to change the normal way of doing things. Alright? It's pretty straightforward. So, yeah, I think that most of us can eventually get to the point where we do work with integrity and the economy isn't based on all this stuff that's horrible and ideally unnecessary. And we each just have to do our best. You know, it's like I said, the things that are good overall don't have as much money flowing through them as things that are bad. But that doesn't mean there's zero money. And if you wake people up, then you can turn on more people to the things that are good for us. So, that's what I'm saying, is that the objective here is, well, it's to change the world. So, and part of it is, a lot of it is economically based. Just not only serving people who would be interested in what you have to offer, but also waking up more people and then having them be interested in it as well. Alright. So, the basic takeaway here, in one sentence, is if you don't work with integrity, then you're wasting your life. And that's it. So, peace out.